By separating your 3D renders into different layers, you can get higher quality renders within the same amount of time, and you can add effects to specific layers, for example adding a bloom effect around specific lights in your scene. In this video I will show you how you can use the Compositor in Blender to separate your renders into different layers and how you can modify those layers to your advantage. So let's go. So to open the Compositor, we will need to click on the Compositing tab in the top header. In here, make sure that you have the Use Nodes turned on, and also turn on the backdrop so that we can see what we're doing. Currently, we have not rendered our scene yet, so there isn't anything that we can work with. So let's first render out our scene. Once we have done that, we can see our rendered scene in the Render Layers node in the Compositor. The first thing that we're going to do is adding a viewer node, which gives us a backdrop of the render. The backdrop may be a bit big, so use V to zoom out and Alt V to zoom back in. The Compositor is roughly the same as the shader editor, in the sense that you can add different nodes which will affect other nodes. But okay, let's duplicate the Renders Layers node, so that when we create a new layer, we can switch to it in the Compositor. To add a new layer, go back to the Layout tab, and in the top header it says Scene. Click on the duplicate icon and choose Full Copy. This will make an exact copy of the scene that we have. Now is also a good time to rename your scene if you want to. In my scene, I will turn off all of the normal object, I will add a few new lights, and I will add a volumetric cube to get the light rays. Back in the Compositor, we can switch one of the Renders Layers node to the new layer that we just created. Keep in mind that you will always need to go back to the main scene's Compositor to change any settings. As you can see, we now have two different layers in our Compositor. To add both scenes together, we will add an Alpha Over node and plug both layers into it like this. But as you can see, the volumetric lighting layer just gets placed on top of the other layer. They don't stack together. This is because we haven't set the layer to transparent. So let's go back to our lighting layer, let's do that, and once we have done that, let's render out our scene again. Now, as you can see, the lighting layer adds to the classroom layer that's below it. But now, you can see that the lighting layer just gets placed entirely over the classroom scene, even in places where the light should be blocked. For example, in front of the chairs and desks. So, to combat this, we will create holdouts. Holdouts basically are silhouettes of objects, letting you render how the object affects the lighting in your scene, without rendering the object itself again, so that you can use the render layer to composite over another layer. It may sound a little complicated, but just let me show you how it works. We will go to our lighting scene, create a new collection and place all of the desks and chairs into that collection. If we set the layer visibility of the collection to a holdout, you can clearly see that the desks affect the lighting in a more realistic way. So if we render our scene again and go back to the Compositor, our final scene should look a lot better. Besides holdouts, you can also set a collection to be indirect lighting only. This basically says that the objects itself will again not be rendered. The only thing that will be rendered is the lighting that bounces off of the objects. This is really useful, for example, when you have water or other reflective surfaces in your scene. I hope that this video was helpful to someone. If you still have any questions, feel free to place them in the comments below and I will try to answer every single one. Good luck with your renders and bye.